Fans of the Horus Heresy, thank you very much for joining me for another rules review, and today we're looking at the Land Raider Proteus and Land Raider Armoured Proteus. So the introduction of the Space Marine Crusade Legion book in the 30k setting brought a new addition to the Land Raider lineup for the Space Marines, and this is the Land Raider Proteus. The Proteus is obviously a throwback to the original Space Marine Land Raider model, and as we can see, it lacks the characteristic assault ramp of the Land Raider Phobos, and you can see such a Phobos in the background. So instead, in terms of access, this Land Raider only has one door on each side of the armoured sponson, or side door in the case of a normal Proteus. So it changes the role of the tank, and also by removing you can look at the Land Raider Proteus as being a bargain basement Land Raider, because it actually only costs 180 points in its basic form, as opposed to 225 for the Phobos. So that opens up some new opportunities. And the most recent edition of the Space Marine Crusade Legion book adds the option for the twin-link las cannon in the hull, which again allows you to repurpose this tank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this review into two halves. The first half is going to talk about using the Proteus as a dedicated battle tank, and the second half is going to consider its options as a dedicated transport vehicle, because there are a number of squads that can take the Proteus as a dedicated transport, and there are some very effective synergies within that. So, as a battle tank, the Land Raider Battle Squadron is a heavy support choice in the Marine Legion. Excuse me. And for your single slot, you can take up to 3 Land Raiders, one of which can be a Land Raider Achilles, and then any number of Proteus or Phobos Land Raiders. So for your 180 points, as well as the all-round 14 armour, ballistic skill 4 and 4 hull points, excuse me, you get 2 sponsor-mounted twin-link las cannons, a searchlight smoke launchers, and a machine spirit. So note, it's lost its anti-infantry heavy bolter. However, the points have been stripped right down to the base. So you buy, in effect, a dedicated battle tank just with its anti-armour weapons. As is normal with the case with marine vehicles, there are a whole host of options. Excuse me. For equipment, you have a hunter-killer missile, dozer blade, auxiliary drive, extra armour, and armoured ceramite. You have pintle weapon options. So this particular example is equipped with a heavy bolter, and as well as that, you can have combi weapons, twin-link bolters, heavy flamer, multi-melter, and a havoc launcher as well. So you can, for a relative small number of points, the heavy bolter is only 10, you can add some anti-infantry capability back in easily. And you can also then take, in the case of the armoured Proteus, but there's no reason why you couldn't convert a standard Proteus to be armed as such. Excuse me. You can add a weapon in the hull turret. So you can take a twin-linked heavy bolt gun, heavy flamer, or as I've armed it, las cannon. And with adding that third twin-linked las cannon for 30 points, beg your pardon. So for 220 points, as it's shown here, we have a very heavy tank armed with 3 twin las cannons. And by removing that assault vehicle capability, we've got something that's on a par, or more on a par, with other Space Marine battle tanks such as the Sicaran and the Predator. And so these 3 twin-link las cannons make it a very effective main battle tank. There are a couple of drawbacks which you need. There are a couple of unique benefits and drawbacks that you have to be considered as well with a third las cannon. So the first drawback, or the drawback, is mobility and firing on the move. The machine spirit allows the Land Raider to normally move and fire both of its last cannons at full ballistic skill. Now, with the third last cannon, any sort of movement is going to put one of those last cannons on snap fire. So there is a loss of accuracy. To fully benefit from this triple last cannon loadout, you will need to be stationary. However, at the same time, there are benefits as well from having 3 last cannons, which is around the limitations of sponsored mounted weapons. Now, clearly, a sponsored mounted weapon limits your fire arc quite considerably. So, if range is close at all, and depending on the terrain, you may well only be able to bring one or the other last cannon to bear on a target. The addition of the hull mount means that most of the time you should be able to draw line of sight with 2 out of your 3 last cannons. I mean, I think a lot of the time you'd be able to do 3 out of 3. Excuse me. But that third last cannon mount helps keep at least 2 weapons trained on a target at any one time. And if you're moving, and again, targets are out of arc, then it may not matter that one of your last cannons is only snap firing. The final choice of a Proteus, final option equipment-wise, is the Exploratory augury web. So this is an expensive upgrade at 50 points. You also sacrifice 2 transport slots as well. So there's so you're reduced to 8, a capacity of 8 troops only. However, you do get the option to do one of 2 modes with the augury web. So the first is disruption mode, and with this active, any opposing forces suffer a -1 to their reserve rolls for a turn. And then second mode, which is relay mode, allows you to re-roll any failed or indeed successful reserve rolls yourself. So that can allow you to deliberately delay your own reinforcements or increase the likelihood of them arriving. So to do that, that brings a unique capability to the force. So yeah, as a battle tank, if you're now wanting the ultimate Land Raider battle tank squadron, you would take 3 armoured Proteus, all armed with 3 twin-link las cannons, and for 630 points, that's a lot of firepower and a lot of armour. Okay, so now let's move the discussion on and think about the use of this vehicle as a dedicated transport. There are 3 standard Legion squads that are allowed to take this as a dedicated transport: the Destroyer Squad, the Breacher Siege Squad, and the Seeker Squad. Of those, I think the Breacher Siege Squad and the Seeker Squad are 2 good combinations. The Breacher Siege Squad, you can use the Proteus to move them into position, and the lack of the assault vehicle capability doesn't matter, because with Breacher Marines you don't want to assault, but you want to be assaulted to force the enemy into disorganised charges. Likewise, the Seeker Squad, the speed of the Land Raider and the anti-tank capability as well can serve them well for the sort of flanking tactics that sit well with those Marines. The Destroyer Squad, I suppose you could use a Proteus with them, perhaps using it as an armoured flanking lump to protect them. But I don't see such a strong synergy with the Destroyer Squad, and I think there are better options for mobility for those guys. Excuse me. Okay, so let's move on to Legion specifics. So I've got a pick of some of the really good synergies and options for Legion specific squads for the Proteus as a dedicated transport. So firstly, for the Iron Hands, the Gorgon Terminators can use this. Excuse me. The Gorgons can also take the Phobos as a dedicated transport, but you can actually play the Gorgons as a shooting Terminator squad as well as in a melee squad. And in that case, the lack of the assault vehicle ability doesn't matter, and you can use the las cannons to give them anti-tank fire support as well. The salamanders can take the fire drake terminators. A very powerful synergy sits for the Iron Warriors with the Tyrant Siege Terminators. The Tyrant Siege Terminators were character for active army, so are very slow. Put them in a Land Raider Proteus, zoom them to an objective or a piece of terrain you want to occupy, unload them, and then give their missile launcher battery further fire support with your las cannons, and that seems an excellent combination and use of the tank. The Ultramarines Legion can take the Ultramarines Invictaris Caesarian Squad can take. This is dedicated transport. This is interesting, this because the Caesarian, excuse me, have a base model size of 5, and they're standard infantry. So you've actually got the option here of buying the Exploratory augury web and an 8-man Caesarian squad, which is an interesting mix. And then also the Ultramarines have the Fulmentaris Terminator Strike Squad. This is similar to the Tyrant Squad in that you have your missile support system on your Terminator and the cataphracti, so they're slow. However, I don't think it's as strong as synergy, because with the Fulmentaris you really want squad sizes of 8 to 10 to fully exploit their special users, and in that instance you have to move to a Spartan as a dedicated transport. Moving to the Alpha Legion, an excellent synergy here with the Lernian Terminator Squad. So Lernian Terminators can always seize objectives, and their conversion beamer for anti-tank and Volkite chargers makes them very good at that. Give them the additional mobility of a Land Raider Proteus, coupled with las cannons for further fire support, and yeah, you've got a very powerful objective seizing unit there. And then finally, a couple of options for the Imperial Fists. The Templar Brethren and the Phalanx Warden Squad can both take this tank as a dedicated transport. So there you go. Yeah, I hope that's been interesting, and perhaps, you know, given you some new ideas around what is quite a very common and familiar tank in the game of 1340k. I think the Proteus has really opened up some new and interesting tactical options around this vehicle. If you've got any comments or perhaps tactics of your own, please say that down in the comment section. Thank you very much for listening as always. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.